Gwen Stefani stepped on stage in the mid-90s with platinum hair and a scream. So the teenage girls would jump and grown men get weak in the knees. She's the ska punk princess who somehow also became a glamorous pop icon. The cheerleader who couldn't be bothered by the rules. Her mix of old Hollywood and spunky Orange County grit changed pop stardom forever. I drew pindies on my Barbie dolls because of her. My English teacher looked just like her. And I thought she was the most beautiful woman in the world. And if you think you know Gwen, trust me, you're just scratching the surface. The real story is way messier and way cooler. Oh, and by the end of all this, we'll even dish out a few of her beauty secrets to try out. But first, the story behind that signature style is anything but bananas. Well, actually, part of it is. We'll get to that.
Welcome. I'm Kira, and this is your beauty blueprint.
If you only have 30 seconds, here's the bottom line of this video. Gwen Stefani became an absolute icon by mixing innocent vintage charm with fun but mad punk attitude. She turned her very personal heartbreaks into chart-topping hits and even flipped a catty insult into a career-defining cheerleader from hell anthem. Style-wise, she created a unique look, platinum blonde hair, matte red lips, winged liner, that paid homage to classic Hollywood and the skate parks of Orange County. Her secret? Total authenticity. Gwen has always lived and breathed her own glam tomboy aesthetic, did her own makeup, designed her own clothes, and stayed true to her own quirkiness. But if you'd like more of an explanation, the heartbreaks, the feuds, the fashion evolution, well, follow me. It's a wild ride. Maybe grab a snack with a little extra spice. Get comfortable. To really get how she became the Gwen Stefani, we have to rewind all the way back to October 3rd, 1969, when Gwen Renee Stefani was born in the suburb of California, just a stone's throw from Disneyland. Her childhood foreshadowed the persona she'd later create. Little Gwen was a girly girl who loved playing dress-up and idolized the characters from The Sound of Music and Disney cartoons. But she was also captivated by the edgier sides of life. I was always really inspired by bright, cartoony colors and that feeling of happiness, but also really into chola gangster girls and old Hollywood icons like Marilyn Monroe. One day, she discovered James Dean and Marilyn as a teenager, so she ran out, bought posters, and redecorated her entire room. That mix of punk, sunny pop, and vintage glam was brewing in her imagination. And music was a family affair. Her parents loved folk music, her mom played autoharp, dad played guitar, and her brother Eric was an anime-obsessed pianist and artist. In 1986, he started a ska band in their garage, and begged his little sister to sing backing vocals. Gwen was 17, shy, and by her own admission, wasn't doing anything in particular until then. The band, hilariously named No Doubt after the charismatic lead's John Spence's favorite catchphrase, began playing local gigs with Gwen hiding in the back. That changed in December 1987 when tragedy struck. John Spence died by suicide. The shocking loss nearly shattered No Doubt before they'd even begun. I guess I didn't really know him. He was hurting so badly, she reflected later. But she also stepped up. The responsibilities shifted. Gwen Stefani became the lead singer of No Doubt, almost by fate. It wasn't a role she had craved, but one she grew into. Yet, for the next 8 years, No Doubt slugged it out in obscurity. They were just a misfit group with a perky blonde frontwoman. By 1992, they'd gotten a record deal and released a self-titled debut, but it flopped hard. Their label lost interest and the band members had to take day jobs. At one low point, they were sitting there saying to themselves, okay, we are 26, we've been doing this for 8 years. Maybe we should finish up and get adult lives now. The grunge movement was in full swing, and here was No Doubt, too upbeat, too Orange County, too uncool. We were always the dork band from Anaheim. We never were cool enough or tough enough. I always felt like Shirley Temple, just this little lollipop out there, and I could never have a raspy or loud, screaming voice. In the macho, angsty world of alt-rock, Gwen's high ponytails and bubbly energy stood out, but all the LA people looked down on them because they were from Orange County. They weren't cool. By 1995, though, the winds shifted. No Doubt released Tragic Kingdom, an album filled with insanely catchy songs, and at its center was Gwen, Suddenly not a side player, but a star. The breakout single, Just a Girl, was a sassy, sarcastic takedown of double standards. It struck a chord as a 90s girl power anthem. Critics called it feminist light, yet teenage fans embraced Gwen as a new rock heroine. Suddenly, No Doubt went from being the dork band to selling millions. That album hit #1 and would eventually go diamond. And the shy Orange County girl who thought she'd never be cool enough found herself on magazine covers. Amid this whirlwind, Gwen poured her personal heartache into one of the album's songs, a ballad that would become the band's signature. She and bassist Tony Kanal had been a couple since high school, attached at the hip for 7 years. In Gwen's words, "I was so in love, I heard wedding bells." But he wanted space. Tony ended the relationship. But instead of crumbling, she'd put the pain into lyrics. Her brother had written a mournful piece of music, and Gwen took it and turned it into Don't Speak. The raw honesty clearly resonated. Don't Speak exploded in 1996 and hit #1 all around the world. Gwen, who used to get nervous even singing in front of her bandmates, now belted out her private heartbreak to millions. "It changed everything. It's the heartbeat of who I am," she reflected later. Gwen Stefani was 27 years old and already a pop culture phenomenon. Sudden fame brought ecstatic highs and weird lows. The press couldn't get enough of Gwen, to the vexation of her bandmates. She was an obvious focus, a photogenic young woman in a mostly male band with a compelling Cinderella story. But No Doubt was still a tight-knit group, and Gwen was very aware of the dynamic. The music video for Don't Speak actually depicts the band's discomfort with Gwen's new celebrity, showing magazine covers that single her out while the guys glower behind, a scenario eerily close to reality. Gwen tried to diffuse the Gwen and her backing band narrative at every turn. "It's not like Gwen Stefani and the No Doubt background loser boys. I would feel naked without them." Still, the media did latch onto Gwen's image. And here's where the conversation about her attractiveness and archetype really kicks in. Overnight, she became a new sex symbol. Women's Wear Daily praised her eclectic style, while Newsweek crudely sniped by calling her a skank for showing skin. Rock critics, too, were skeptical of this bubbly blonde. Some insinuated she was too pretty to mean it, that her looks and pop appeal disqualified her from authentic artistry. Gwen heard the whispers and the outright insults, but she refused to tone herself down. Early on, she'd felt pressure to be a slutty wild woman because she was a female rock singer. But that wasn't her. In fact, Gwen was a self-described goody two-shoes in many ways. Monogamous, family-oriented, even a homebody at times. The truth is, Gwen's style, bare midriff, bindies on her forehead, platinum hair with blue-tinted ends, glittering braces on her teeth, all of it came from her authentic delight in fashion and theatrics. She was just playing dress-up on a global stage. And even as critics scoffed, fans saw something inspiring in Gwen. Here was a woman who could serenade her ex-boyfriend with tears in her eyes 1 minute and do push-ups on stage the next. One journalist at the time cleverly dubbed her Doris Day in a tank top and bondage pants. That contrasting archetype is key to understanding Gwen's allure. She embodied the duality of the virgin and the trickster. She had a wholesome, playful aura and a rebellious streak. Men found this intoxicating. How could they not? Gwen would hob around stage in her sports bra with that flat, sun-kissed stomach on display, exuding athleticism and joy rather than raunch. She was sexy, yes, but in a way that seemed organic, an unintentional sex symbol who didn't bank on shock value. Gwen channeled a vintage eroticism that's rare today. Many modern pop stars rely on hyper-conceptual gimmicks and lose genuine sex appeal. Gwen, by contrast, was never a manufactured personality. She drew from real personal obsessions, be it Marilyn Monroe or the ultra-feminine 40s silhouettes she loved. Writers implied Gwen's cheerful style wasn't serious enough for highbrow analysis. How wrong they were. In hindsight, Gwen Stefani was forging a new blueprint for women in music. She proved you could be taken seriously, even with rhinestones on your face. She didn't pretend to be one of the boys. She embraced being a girl, even a girly girl. It was said that Gwen's explicit and flippant mimicry of normative hyperfemininity might send the message that women acquire attention, approval, and authority to the degree that they are willing to act like children. It's an interesting critique. Was Gwen subverting the dumb blonde cheerleader stereotype or leaning into it? The answer is both. She walked a fine line, winking at the stereotype while also benefiting from the allure it carries. But Gwen was always in on the joke. There's a famous moment in No Doubt's Just a Girl video where she bats her eyelashes and sings. That's Gwen in a nutshell. Speaking of cheerleaders, this is a perfect time to talk about that feud, the one that led to Gwen Stefani's most iconic solo hit. 2004 gave us a Gwen who was like a living doll in an over-the-top pop world, flanked by her posse of 4 Japanese dancers. Some of this was controversial, but it produced undeniable bops like the inescapable Hollaback Girl. That's Hollaback Girl. If you were anywhere near a radio in 2005, you remember that marching band stomp and Gwen spelling out that this shit is bananas. B-A-N-A-N-A-S. It's one of those songs that lodges in your brain and stays for decades. Here's the story. In 2004, Kurt Cobain's Courtney Love gave an interview where she made a sniping comment at Gwen. Being famous is just like being in high school, but I'm not interested in being the cheerleader. I'm not interested in being Gwen Stefani. She's the cheerleader, and I'm out in the smoker's shed. Oof. When Gwen heard about it, she went into the studio with Pharrell Williams and made it into a song. If you think I'm a cheerleader, she decided, I'll give you the craziest cheerleader the world has ever heard. One time, this person was talking shit about me, saying I was like a cheerleader, and I was like, you know what? I am a cheerleader. Watch me on stage. So I wanted a song like that. It's a slap. It's a slap on the bottom. It's a slap on the face. The result was Hollaback Girl. I heard that you were talking shit, and you didn't think that I would hear it. People hear you talking like that, getting everybody fired up. It doesn't get more cheerleader than that, in the most badass way. The song was a massive hit, platinum many times over, and notably, the first digital song to sell over 1 million downloads. She never explicitly confirmed Hollaback Girl was aimed at Courtney Love, but everyone knew. Gwen had the last laugh. Now, around this same mid-2000 period, Gwen's personal life was evolving too. Remember Gavin Rossdale, the lead singer of Bush? Gwen met him on tour back in 1995 when No Doubt opened for Bush in Europe. She resolved not to date another musician. The last thing I wanted was a guy in a band. Every girl wants to fuck them. Sorry, Mom. And yet she fell for Gavin within days. On the 3rd day, I knew, she said. They clicked instantly. He was London cool. She was all-American sunshine. They started a long-distance romance that turned into a rock and roll fairy tale, at least for a while. Gwen described Gavin as the most sickeningly romantic guy I've ever met. And on top of it, he's physically perfect. And I am not even into that. They balanced each other out. We talk about, dude, you're a fox. Quick, give me a kiss. Like 2 normal people that just want to take a break from their work lives and hang out, she said. By the early 2000s, Gavin and Gwen were rock's golden couple. They got married in 2002. She famously wore that Dior wedding dress that was pure white at the top and stained cool red at the bottom. Yet, true to the roller coaster nature of her story, Gwen's fairy tale didn't last. Sounds like he'd had an affair with their children's nanny. Gwen filed for divorce, a very public heartbreak after 13 years of marriage. But in classic Gwen fashion, she turned her pain into art once more. Her 2016 solo album, This Is What the Truth Feels Like, was essentially a diary of her divorce and recovery, and it hit #1. Her first solo #1 album, in fact. So, here we are today. And what exactly makes her so attractive in that ineffable star-quality way? Gwen's magnetism comes from being the girl who can hang with the guys and still be unashamedly girly. Men are drawn to her because she just radiates fun. She'll crack a self-deprecating joke 1 minute and then slink across a stage with unbothered, seductive confidence the next. In an era when many female stars felt pressure to project either a hypersexual persona or a demure one, Gwen managed to be sexy without selling out, She has often said that she considers sex something sacred and private. She has never been one to have random flings or generate scandal that way. Down-to-earth wholesomeness, paradoxically, makes her even more desirable. She's the bombshell you could take home to meet Mum. She spent much of her 20s in one committed relationship, then much of her 30s in another. Not exactly the stereotypical rock star life. At the same time, visually, Gwen understood the power of iconography. The platinum blonde hair and red lipstick are not accidents. They're deliberate nods to classic Hollywood, Marilyn being a major inspiration. But she'd pair that with punk. The result was a kind of campy sexiness, and a big part of Gwen's enduring appeal is also her creative control over her image. She's not a pop puppet styled by a label. She's always been the mastermind of her look. From the early days of No Doubt, Gwen made or thrifted a lot of her own clothes. She admits some of those DIY looks were questionable in hindsight. But that's precisely what fans loved. She was one of us, experimenting, evolving. I always have a way better show if I wear pants. I just said, forget it, I'm not wearing a dress anymore, she once said from experience. Gwen became known for those pants, and she'd glam it up on top with a sparkle and jewels in her hair or on her face, just because. Okay, that was a lot, but Gwen's story is nothing if not eventful. Still with me? Good, because now comes the practical part. We've broken down the why and how of Gwen Stefani's persona. Up next, how you can steal a page from her beauty playbook. Fear not, Gwen's look is actually surprisingly attainable with the right tricks. First up, the makeup. Gwen has always been a makeup lover. Fun fact, before No Doubt made it big, she actually worked the makeup counter at a department store in Anaheim, practicing on everyday customers and discovering the magic of how makeup gives people confidence. Gwen's lip, first of all, is legendary. She's so associated with red lipstick that she eventually released her own perfect shade called Original Me, a matte true red in her GXV beauty line. It's still available. The key is to apply it carefully. Gwen is known to overline her lips slightly, but her lip line is always crisp. Use a matching red lip liner first to outline and fill in your lips. It also helps longevity. Once you've got the red lip, you're halfway to Gwen's vibe. Next are the eyes. Gwen's other signature is that sharp winged eyeliner. For this, you'll need a steady hand and a good liner. Start thin at the inner corner and extend a wing at the outer edge. Don't be afraid to make it dramatic. Gwen certainly wasn't. Moving on to hair, and this is a big one. She's been bleaching it since high school. In fact, the first time Gwen went fully blonde was after a breakup. She said, "I don't care how much it costs, I'm getting my hair bleached." And that dramatic hair change symbolically kicked off that big next chapter of her life. She was never the same after. It was a power move, really. To get Gwen's hair color, truthfully, is a commitment. Achieving that level of platinum ideally requires a professional bleach job. You have to lift all the pigment out until it's almost white, then tone it. If you're brave and your hair is healthy, you can try an at-home kit, something like L'Oreal's bleaching kit or Manic Panic's Flash Lightning bleach. But it's the risk of sounding like a teacher. Please be careful. Bleach can fully wreck your hair if done wrong. If you do go for it, also invest in a purple shampoo to avoid brassiness. Gwen no doubt uses those religiously. Keeping that color is work. You can also nod to Gwen's cultural influence moments. In the mid-90s, she often wore a bindi, the ornamental dot or jewel on the forehead. Basically mix and match mad punk with pinup. It's a 1940s pinup girl who got lost at a ska punk concert and decided to crowd surf. If that sounds crazy, well, that's Gwen. Now, Gwen will be the first to tell you that good skin and self-care are the foundation, pun intended, of lasting beauty. She has a few rules, and the biggest one is sun protection. I would tell my younger self to stay out of the sun and wear sunscreen, Gwen says emphatically. She admits she baked in the sun as a teenager. She was even a lifeguard once, and had no idea of the damage. In her 20s, she wised up and quit sunbathing. Gwen's other skincare must is keep it clean and hydrated. She never, ever leaves her makeup on overnight. This is non-negotiable. Even in her wild touring days, she'd find a way, literally washing her face with bottled water, inside a bus if she had to, because sleeping in makeup was not it. And she has always stayed active. She's dabbled in everything from boxing to dance to keep fit. In the end, Gwen Stefani's story is a beauty blueprint in the truest sense. Not just for how to do your makeup or hair, but for how to construct a life of style, substance, and fun all at once. Gwen once said, "Even if no one was looking, I'd still be wearing the same things." That right there is the secret. She's not dressing up for us. She's dressing up for her. Maybe that's why we can't look away. Now, excuse me while I go put on some red lipstick and crank up Hollaback Girl. After all, this shit is bananas. I wish I could make this video longer. Perhaps another one day?